Hello, beloveds. It's Lainie Love Dalby beaming in, Oracular Astrologer, cosmic creatrix of the Sacred Revolution Oracle, and founder of the Ecstatic Embodied Leadership Academy. And I am so excited to be here today with my beloved soul sister, Tami Brunk. She's a shamanic astrologer, dream worker, as well as the creator of the Earth Sky Woman podcast. And we are here to talk about the astrology of 2025 because it is big, y'all. There's a lot happening over here in the cosmic dance of life. And so we really want to help ground you and anchor you in the wisdom of the cosmic movements that are going to be happening to really support you in your journey this year and really being able to live your big dream and step into that next level of who you are here to be, which you know is a big passion of mine, to really live into our revolutionary potential. And I really feel that, and I know Tami feels similar, that astrology can really support us in doing that. It's literally a cosmic map and a blueprint to really help us be guided in that greater journey of discovering our most authentic essence. And so welcome, Tami. So grateful to be with
Thank
you.
you. So good to be with you again.
So where should we dive in? There's so much to go into.
Whew. I just want to share something as we dive in. It feels like there's this bigger movement, of course, that's a bigger thread that's even bigger than any of the specific astrological energies. And I think we probably both get images when we first start. So I want to just share, we were going to do this a couple days ago, and for various reasons we didn't do it, right? And so
The
what
world
was coming,
burning being one of them.
the world burning being one of them. Oh my goodness, yeah. So what was coming through that morning, I've had two different visions, and maybe you would share two. The first, before we were preparing, and I was just feeling it all move through my body, right? Prior to our session, was this image of us with our toolkit, like, just like our medicine bag, right? We've each got our medicine bag, and we've been gathering everything over all these years. And, some of us are using most of the tools we've got in there. Some of us are kind of have been taking a break. I've been seeing a lot of people who are elders who have been holding space massively, and they're being called to step up even bigger. And some are being called to kind of step back, and so that new people can come into the field. But this image was like, whatever's in your medicine bag, generally speaking, we're all called to bring out all that medicine, all of it. Like this year, it's kind of no holds barred. So I think it's fun sometimes just to share the deeper images. And then the second one was, and I'm just curious what images are coming through for you, but the second one had to do with discordance and proper use of discordance. Those were two different themes that came through before we dive into the specifics.
Yeah, I'd love to go into that more. I mean, in terms of the visions that I've been seeing around this year and the sort of key themes that feel really important and so much, I mean, I do believe that we're in such a collective time now of fully owning and anchoring in our unique medicine and our gifts and our medicine bundle, as you're talking about, and really being able to know our lane and to be very clear about that and to bring forward our gifts in that, knowing we can't go everywhere, right? We have to
Yeah, we
choose
can't do
and be
everything.
very discerning with our life force energy of like, this is my lane. I'm going to stay in my
Yeah.
lane and support how I can in my lane around whatever is happening, because there are so many issues bursting out all around us and chaos. And so it's really not only knowing your medicine, but knowing specifically where you're meant to bring that medicine and staying
Mm-hmm.
close to that as a home zone. And the vision I've been seeing is around the need for and the power of being in our individual sovereign power, self-agency, and choice, and also being connected in the web of community care. And so there's a way
Mm-hmm.
that it feels like it's so important for us with Pluto and Aquarius, right? To come into our unique genius, to let our freak flag fly, to really be in that most authentic expression of who we are. And also to do that in collaboration, to do that together. And so, even with my upcoming year-long mentoring container, the Sparkle Shamelessly Sisterhood, what I saw when that group started to cohere together is this extremely powerful constellation, and a constellation that is both anchoring but also activating. So a way to anchor with
Mm-hmm.
each other, support each other, hold each other, uplift each other, really be there arm in arm for when shit gets
Mm.
really rough, because it
Yeah.
could. right? The
Yeah.
sea could get
Could.
very rocky with this North Node in Pisces energy with the Aries and everything coming in. And so arm in arm is the image that I saw, that we are
Mm,
solid together. Just like if
mm,
you're one person standing in the ocean and there's a massive wave, it's going to blow you over. But if you're arm in arm with a whole group of people, it's not
mm.
going to affect you the same. And so there's a way that it feels
Beautiful.
like that dance between really being in our sovereign self, sovereign power, and also being in community is essential now more than ever. I always speak to this as being essential because it is one of the core pillars of the sacred art of sparkling shamelessly. But the way I felt it in my body this time was like,
Mm,
holy shit, like this is
mm.
powerful than I've ever felt before. And it is
Beautiful.
also so needed. It was like, we must do this. It's
Yeah.
not like, oh, this is some offering I'm doing because of X, Y, and Z. It's like, no, we must do this. There actually isn't anything that's even more important that I could particularly do and hold space for this year with what is
Mm,
coming. And so I just really felt that, and it felt really powerful. It's like I followed that inner call to create this. And then after the election happened, it was like, then I really saw that vision and I was like, ah, I see, I see. And so
mm.
that piece of,
Beautiful.
the Aries energy that's going to be coming in of that courageous visionary leadership, it's like, okay, and that's who I hold space for, right? It's like really ecstatic embodied visionary leaders and world
Mm,
changers. And so it just feels like it is our time. And as
yeah.
a, spiritual, somebody who has spiritual and creative gifts, it also feels like people are starting to see and acknowledge those more than ever and see the value in them. Where
Absolutely.
before I've had to like educate, and now it's like, oh, people are actually understanding the value. And so I think those of us with spiritual and creative gifts are going to continue to rise, and that medicine bag is going to need to be fully activated.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. That image is so powerful. I feel that in my whole body. And when you were speaking about knowing exactly, yeah, good differentiation. It's not like you're doing all of your tools all at once, but the word I keep hearing is jurisdiction.
Mm,
What is my jurisdiction? It's been coming through in different ceremonial contexts that I've been in, but it's literally spiritually and otherwise. What is my jurisdiction is the question I keep asking myself, and refining that. We keep refining that. And yeah, absolutely. I think when I was speaking into the discordance, part of what that is I see that the shadow sometimes with Aquarius and with certain aspects is, and in the spiritual community, I know, and I've struggled with it myself. It's like our difference, our uniqueness, all of that. Are we using this to separate ourselves
mm,
from the whole to be special in some way? And there's a need for that. We all need to feel held and belonging and all of that. But as we're maturing spiritually, which I think is so much of what the journey we've been on since Saturn moved into Pisces in 2023, it's this spiritual maturation. And so there's just this interesting thing that I kept feeling. It's like, yes, there's the need for dissent. There's the need for standing strong. There's the need for these energies of kind of rebellion in a sense. But how do we use that masterfully in a sense? And so that it's, knowing what it is that we're actually, because so I think so many of us, I know I've been seeing the rebellious aspect of myself. It's been alive since I was very young. I've been looking at it. I've been connecting with it. I've been feeling her, and then seeing the places where it's like, oh, and then this sometimes is a part that keeps me separate from others, isolated from others, but it's the exact reverse.
yeah.
It's the exact reverse. It's the, how can I be in my jurisdiction, be in my lane, be this being that I am, and use that medicine of contrast in a really masterful way to cultivate energy, to spark, and bring alive what I'm here to do. And so there's just something, and I feel it just in terms of the edge between Pisces and Aries when you're speaking, right? There's that threshold where the Pisces aspect just knows,
Mm,
like you're saying, that unity consciousness knows that we're in it together. And Aquarius in his highest also knows that. And then the Aries aspect, which the way I've been seeing it is that the North Node in Aries is kind of like the scout that's been in the really like tracking the territory ahead for all of us prior to this movement from Saturn and Neptune into Aries. It's like the North Node's already taken us into the future on some level,
mm,
into this vastly new territory, helping us to open into our uniqueness, helping us to claim who we are, helping us to really step into our medicine, to sparkle. And so then now Saturn and Neptune, these massive forces moving into Aries, that this is where we get to really ground it. And it is like what you express with your body is just like there's a deep grounding that's happening for us right now, a deep, deep grounding into the real. And it is a year for dreamers. I mean, it is absolutely a year for the dreamers and the visionaries to understand the substantiality to working in the field of dreaming. And I think, like you're saying, so many people are recognizing that now. The telepathy tapes, have you heard of that? That's something that's been really big now in the field.
Hmm.
These kids who are telepathic. And so, a lot of the work many of us have been doing for a long time in terms of work in ceremony with groups. I've done it with active dreaming. You do it in so much of your ceremony, where we are coming together and opening our own oracular gifts and skills. And given a given theme or topic or moment of history, we're learning how to tune in and open our inner oracle and then compare notes, do research, really understand the deeper field of what's going on based on what each of us as this unique channel can create as a kind of tapestry when we bring it together. So it's like there's this sort of almost underground, deeper dreaming that we're all doing together. And we've been doing it together. A lot of us I've had a lot of times people have said, oh, you were in my dream, or I see you in my dream. And so we kind of know at the deeper levels, we're already doing a whole lot of work that our world side self doesn't see. Now, that kind of subterranean work that we've been doing together collectively, it's a bit more visible.
Yeah.
Right? Like the mycorrhizal connections, the roots in the inner earth, or the roots in the more unconscious or transpersonal realms, we're starting to see it. It's wild.
Yeah, no, I really feel that too. And especially with, the North Node going into Pisces here, it's imminently, it's this way that even like, it feels like fragments of dreams, fragments of visions, things that have been coming through over the years that didn't make sense necessarily, that we're like, oh, we were like catching these crumbs and these like fragments, and we're like, what is this, right? But we like see and feel the fragment, and they've been floating around in the field, and we've all been catching these fragments, but it feels like they are starting to cohere and come into some greater form of clarity. I think with Neptune also finally leaving Pisces, like the veil and the fog will be lifted of anywhere that there was confusion. So there will be that sense of being able to move forward with clarity and direction and focus with some of that Martian energy of like, okay, let's now take action on these visions, dreams, and fragments that have started to cohere. And, that definitely feels like some of the power of this. But it also, in terms of the fragments that are coming together, there's something about that as well, that it feels like all these different puzzle pieces are starting to cohere to where it's almost like we can see that bigger dream now. And the phrase of the next Buddha is the Sangha, that teaching of basically like the next, enlightened one is actually connected community. Like that is the energy, right? And
that's right.
That's like how the big dream can actually come through. That's how it can be born. So ending the separation, truly coming back together in that unity consciousness and raising our consciousness. That is my hope for Pluto and Aquarius, that it really becomes this real awakening of consciousness. And instead of going into the shadowy realms, and that we're actually able to come into a whole other way of being, seeing, knowing, understanding, relating, and that can really support us in creating the heaven on earth that is available here now, if enough of us are really holding that field and actively co-creating it. Instead of the alternative story, which is war and strife and struggle and separation and disconnection, and and so that's the one part about this year with the Aries energy, with Saturn and Neptune moving into Aries for me, that's like knowing that Aries does rule war, it does rule conflict in that way. I'm curious your thoughts of that, and just some of the tensions that are already alive in the field. Like, what are you feeling and sensing around that? Because, of course, Aries also is that courageous leadership. It's the one that is claiming their life and their wild aliveness and following that. And that's like what I'm holding as this, that we can really with that South Node in Virgo, come into our radiant well-being and release
Mm,
any ways that we aren't in our highest sacred service in
yeah.
courageous leadership, that we're doing
Mm,
both. And that's sort of the higher vision that I'm holding with that. But yeah, curious about that and what you think about it.
yeah. No, um, I'll just, so I will apply it directly, but it brings to mind a very visceral moment that I had near the time of October 7th of 2023. We all know what was happening at that point. And I remember I started connecting with the woman at that time. And it was one of, as you're speaking, there are all these communities, the Sangha, we've been finding our Sangha. We've been finding them over these past, since 2020, really. And before that, but especially around that time. And so this was another woman who was in that group for me where we just clicked, right? We had all this deeper work we had to do together. And I remember a moment where we were recognizing at this deeper recognition, she had this, that what was happening in the larger world, it was like all of these rumblings, kind of like earthquakes. There was this very vital kind of energy in this moment of this massive eruption of energy. And what we were coming to, what I was seeing and feeling too, was that for those of us who tend to be more in the level, before we started talking, you're like, you look angelic. I had different lighting, right? Those of us who tend to lean more in the angelic, most likely at this phase, we're going to need to activate, more of the yang masculine energy. Those of us who have been more in the yang masculine energy are needing to activate more of that. I would say more the Pisces Cancerian side of things. That's why Mars is beginning a new cycle, actually. From the frame of shamanic astrology, Mars is beginning a new cycle when it's opposite the sun and retrograde on January 15th, right around the time of this very vital full moon we're about to move into. And so, with that understanding, this Mars movement, the masculine principle, is in this very nourishing kind of energy that it's learning to navigate. And so this is where we're seeing the queer community is so essential right now. So essential right now. So thank you for all the work you're doing in that community, because we are in this moment where, my understanding of Aries, just to go back to the Aries piece, there's Mars and there's Aries, right? They're very strong in the field this year, massively strong. And my understanding of Aries from my beginning of my training was that Aries at its highest is so vital at the turning of the ages, this moment we're in, because it is the energy that's here to restore the cosmic balance. And there's an understanding that we've been out of balance. Whatever you want to call this age we're in, if you want to get really simple around it, just say we're not in balance. There's no moral, we're not balanced. So then I think the question is, how do we become more balanced? And I think because we've been so out of balance, that's part of why the world around us has had to be so absolutely crazy and nuts and confusing and upside down. And what's happening? It's like global weirding, as one of my friends calls it, right? Because what's it going to take to get us back into balance? It's going to take some really wild threads. So I think Aries is about helping us restore balance, and it takes a lot of courage to really be doing the shadow work, or to be able to do the work internally that helps us to activate the aspects of self that we haven't been comfortable activating yet. So I think this year we're going to see a lot new emerging within us, that we haven't seen before, because life is going to call us to balance in a massive way. So, but in terms of war, in terms of conflict, in terms of all of that, I want to go back. So the deeper understanding was the war and the conflict will not cease until those of us who are so addicted to peace and unity and light without looking at the other side of things are willing to drop into this other realm. It's very uncomfortable to name, very accurate, I think. And so I've been seeing it, yeah. So the actual reason of war on the external is because we've got that going on here. And I know that sounds so simplistic and bypassy, but it's very uncomfortable and real when you start to work with it. And I think part of that too is there have been a lot of us, and I'm part of this as well, who have kind of kept ourselves separate from larger, like the community at large, or engaging within our local kind of sphere of influence. That's been me, and now I'm breaking that. I've got to break that addiction of comfort. to more of the global community and actually drop it in more locally, which, as you know, is a big deal, and it's a very different energetic. And I think there's going to be massive relocalization. That's Gemini, that's Uranus and Gemini energies, that's Aquarius energies. It's like we are relocalizing, we are becoming more bioregional. That's something we're going to be required to do. So that's off the topic of the Aries, but yeah, yeah, I think that again, it is an internal dynamic that needs to be healed, and the spiritual community has a lot of work to do in that realm.
Yeah, I hear that. I mean, that's why I'm an advanced shadow work facilitator, a
Yeah,
shamanic practitioner, and doing soul
speaking into that,
retrieval and
yeah,
all that, because
absolutely.
we can't be in our full power. We can't be in our full essence. We can't be in our fullest expression until we have gone to the depths of the fucking underworld with Pluto energy to like really pull it out from the bottom. And and so I know and see how that important that is. And it's interesting because I also really feel the activation energy of Aries,
Mm,
that
mhm.
initiator, fire starter. And my IC root is in Aries, so it's the root core of who I am. And so I feel very
Yeah,
ready for this time. I'm like, ooh,
yeah.
be able to bring that energy forward. But there's a way that it feels like maybe those that haven't stepped in the ring, that haven't wanted to do that work, that there's going to be this, it feels like there's going to be a swell of energy that's happening around the last eclipse in Aries that we're having, that
Mhm,
partial solar eclipse at the end of March.
mhm.
Because Neptune goes into Aries the next day. It feels like that end of March portal is going to be like this whoosh, of almost the spiritual warriorship energy that Aries can bring with Neptune, that idea of what is it like if we're in our wild warrior energy, but from a deep place of spiritual maturity. And as you've said,
Yeah,
Saturn and
beautiful.
Pisces, I feel like we've been in that journey, but it almost feels like it's almost, so what I've been sensing into is the need to step into sacred activism, like that
Yeah,
something will be stirring to which we're not going to be able to not take action, is what I'm
right,
feeling. And
right.
as
Yes, I
we
hear
go
you.
more into this year, and I don't know what that means, I don't know what that looks like, I don't know what that is, but like you've seen how the first like week and a half of the year have started already. So it's
Yes,
like there are
yes,
things to address, there are things to talk about, there are things to take action on, and there is a need for us to open our compassionate heart and to feel
absolutely.
what is
Yeah,
happening, and to not,
absolutely.
to actually, I think that's some gift of like the North Node in Pisces happening with this Aries activation. It's like to feel it all, to not try to
Right.
bypass it, but to move it through our bodies, you know,
Absolutely.
and that feels
Absolutely.
important. And the grieving, you said something on our connection call the other day. It's like the fires need our tears, like they need that grieving. And with Pisces and Neptune connected to grieving and loss and release and spiritual surrender, it feels like there's a level of spiritual surrender that will be needed
Yeah.
as
Yeah, without a doubt, absolutely. And just to presence that a little bit more when we talked about that, and of course the fires right now are happening as we speak, and we're all, so many of us are feeling that, and beloveds in the middle of that. And the vision that I and others, again, the Sangha, our current Sangha at that time years ago, were feeling and seeing was that it's the grandmothers who are needed when we have parched, dry lands. It's because we ourselves and are not, we're not finding our tears, we're not finding our compassion, we're not accessing the deeper heart. And again, because we are an aspect of this whole creation, and it really is all happening inside of us. And I think we're maturing to a degree where we know we don't just do the work in here, we do it simultaneous. But at the same time, yeah, when we find our tears, when we learn to feel again, because there are so many energetics that keep us in that safe zone of bypassing and distraction, and that's very real. And so, and with the air sign, movement into more of the air signs with Pluto and Aquarius, and then Uranus and Gemini, and let's be honest, Neptune as well. In the later degrees of Pisces, yes, it's moving, but we've been in this zone with that Neptune at the 29 degrees of Pisces that has been potentially bypassy as well, right? And so, a little bit in delusion, or maybe not a little bit. There are a lot of energies right now that really put us into this place of like, what's real? And so, yeah, I think there'll be clarity. Feels like a word is clarity when Uranus moves, or when Neptune moves into Aries.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, a lot of clarity arising. And I agree with you. I think the activism is um, it's something we're going to be called into. And I think this window of time we have, we're really graced at the beginning of the year to have all this time with Mars retrograde, even with the challenges that presents. We are also really graced with a time period where for those who are able to, for us to regroup and really be rooted and deep and restore our energy field so that as we move into March, that we are ready and prepared to really move forward in a good way and to be anchored and rooted in our community and in our Sangha locally and collective, and globally. It's a good thing we have all this time. In fact, usually, the last few years, we've probably noticed at the beginning of the year, at some point, you've got all planets, moving forward. Like everything's like it's go time, right? This year,
Nope.
we have a week of that because as soon as Mars stations direct February 23rd, then we only have like a week before Venus stations retrograde. So there is, I see that as a blessing. Like I always see that as kind of like, oh, good, we've got a little bit of a grace. There's a grace movement there too, right? To support us in continually replenishing, restoring our energies because we need that. We're going to have to do that. And there's a part of the reason when you're talking about the Sangha that it's so powerful is because then we can take turns. If we're part of a larger group consciousness in a responsible, sovereign way, then we understand that we need to take time out. And when we do that, the rest of that field is going to be okay because we can take that time.
Yeah, and that goes back to your sort of word of jurisdiction in a way. It's like
Yeah.
claiming your jurisdiction, but also the time that you need to rest and restore. And I feel like
Yeah.
I'd love to touch into the South Node in Virgo a little bit around this because Virgo does rule illness and wellness and that overall sense of our well-being and sacred service.
Mhm.
And so,
Mhm.
what I've been sensing in around this is that, especially with all the Aries energy coming, which is that vital life force, right? That like wild aliveness in a lot of ways, but really needing to be so skillful in how we channel that with our boundaries, because it's also boundaries. Like something I'm feeling is like, if it's not a holy hell yes this year, it's a fuck no kind of thing. Like get on the no train, like use all that medicine that we learned in the South Node in Libra of no longer
Exactly.
people pleasing, no
Exactly.
longer
Discernment.
compromising ourselves. So having that discernment and really focalizing that energy, but also that piece about replenishment. And with the South Node in Virgo, releasing overdoing and working and hustle
Yeah.
culture. Like I feel like a shadow of Virgo is like the hustle culture that has been killing
Hmm.
us really and making us so sick. And
Interesting. Yeah.
and it's like
Yeah.
the need to release that overworking, that perfectionism, like it has to be done this way and it has to, and really being able to cleanse ourselves of that so that we can find our own essence pace. Like that feels very
Mhm.
North Node and Pisces. Like, what is our essence pace? What is the pace that our
Mhm.
soul needs to go to be able to
Mhm.
actually, you know, actualize our fullest potential? And it's like,
Yeah.
yes, forward momentum, but at your pace. It doesn't have to be
Mhm.
chariot, like, like horses coming out of the gate. It can be this, like, what is your pace in which
Yes.
you can maintain and resource yourself and your well-being and
Hmm.
also take action and do what needs to be done. Like knowing what
Yeah.
nourishes you, what restores you to be able to truly serve at your highest capacity.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. That's so interesting when you say that about Virgo being connected to hustle culture, because part of what that makes me think about and feel is number one, that in my training, well, I should just say I'm a shamanic astrologer, but I am creating a new astrological system that's sourced in that is my own version that's called emergent astrology. And part of what I do with that is really focus on what's actually happening in certain astrological transits that are very actively helping us to compost and heal and clear distortions
Mm-hmm.
and help us get down to the original essence of the sign. And so what I always understood about Virgo is that in its original essence, it would never be co-opted like that because in its original essence. So when you've got a planet, you've got a sign in the South Node, that's telling you we've got 2 years to do some really deep excavation work. And I love the South Node personally because I think the way I always see it is like, it's almost like, I remember when I saw it with Capricorn, it's like you've got to shovel this going down deep through the layers of soil, and you're bringing up some of the muck, and you're just like turning it with all those gross orange peel and all these things. But then when you get down, you're getting down to the really rich, fertile soil by the time you get to the bottom of the 0 degrees of that sign, and you're getting down to the original essence. You're getting down to this really, and that's where we're at as we speak in terms of Aries and Libra. There's some really potent energy arising if we can tune into that.
Yeah.
But Virgo, in its original essence, is about the actual feminine cycles and rhythms of life and attuning ourselves to that. But the reason Virgo has been co-opted is because Virgo just wants to serve so deeply that if she finds herself in a patriarchal culture, she's still going to just serve. She's going to be so deeply devoted that whatever it is, if she's in, HR in a corporation that's going to be extracting the hell out of her, she's often going to be, and I see this with my Virgo friends who are in corporate, this is big. You're right. It's the hustle culture. It's extracting from them. But I'm also seeing them withdraw, because true Virgo medicine, which is the invitation for us to actually access the true Virgo, is the aspect that can attune to and deeply align with the seasons and cycles of this earth and sun and this cosmos. It's natural law,
Yes.
ceremonial law
Yeah.
that we've been remembering, but still, even in priestess culture that we're all part of, we see that hustle, and so yeah, I agree with you. It's having to shift. And I think there's a little bit of that leftover Capricorn, obviously, from all these years of the Capricorn crucible that gets transferred into it. And so I think part of it as well is I think when we make a completion and a break and we move into the next thing, it's important to celebrate, honor, dignify what has been. And I feel that we have elders in the room now. We have a Capricorn elder inside each of us who has been through it since 2008. A part of us that knows actually deeply, if we can remember and resource what it tastes like, what it feels like when we are coming from a place of shadow Capricorn, which is it's scarcity, it's all the layers of patriarchy, it's the competition, it has to do with this deep sense of not enoughness and not belonging. And we've been through that so much that now we have a wise elder inside of us who feels that frequency. And when we touch it again, we can say, oh no, not that. That's not what we're here for. And drop into something more wise and more of the medicine or the frequency of true Capricorn, which is well-earned wisdom. We have been in training. And I think wise Capricorn actually, instead of flagellating ourselves, or however you say that's wounded Capricorn. Wise Capricorn looks back and says, wow, who was I before 2020? Because let's be real, there's a little bit of that same feeling. I was watching a video from early 2020 that I had done, and I was like, whoa, that's me pre-2020. That's our conversation pre-2020. Now who am I? Now who are we? We're different. But it was a sparkly time. We felt all the energy of something new coming, but it was scary. And it's a different octave of that same kind of, oh, this is the next wave. This is the next wave. So I think what Capricorn knows is before you start to be hard on yourself, really, really amplify and strengthen your capacity to see already how strong you are, already how much you've done, already how you are a completely different person. Because that's going to be increasingly important, is to have that practice, because we're going to be awkward. We're going to feel, if we're doing it right, if we're really putting ourselves out there, and this, Lainie, because this is your work, it's going to feel uncomfortable. And that might be a sign that it's like, okay, the right kind of uncomfortable is very important.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with that. Especially because Aries is like the new, it's almost like the fool.
Yeah.
It's just like jumping in. We're like, well, but it's interesting. I was shuffling and pulling cards while you were talking before, and I pulled the Aries card.
Nice.
Your volcanic passion, right? And so there's a way that it's like, it feels like this retrograde time at the beginning of the year is a time for us to really look within and
Mm.
investigate and tune into, okay, how do we want to show up in service? Like listen to our
Yeah.
dreams, start really paying attention to our dreams and attuning, and like, okay, how can I, what is my jurisdiction, right? To actually start like looking at that and attuning to that, like for this moment, for this year, for what's coming, whatever that is, like what is the lane that I want to be in? My that's what I was saying around like jurisdiction is my lane.
Yeah.
It's like what lane do I want to be in? And and then again, rest, restore, start to get very clear about the rituals and the habits that actually serve
Mhm.
you, and clear the ones that
Yes.
don't. With that south node in Virgo, it's like there are any rituals that are tired, that aren't serving you anymore, it's time to let them go and
Yeah.
establish
Yeah.
those ones that reconnect you to spirit and your intuition and that Pisces higher dimension. And
Mm.
and in that, like, then be able to prepare and resource self to be ready at the end of March, like you were saying. But it's
Mm.
interesting because delight in sacred play and synchronicity also came through, which
Yeah.
just feels a little like Pisces energy, right? Of like art and the muse and creativity and music, and like there's like the magical energy that is available in these creative realms too feels somehow connected
Hmm.
to this. It's like both of
Yes.
them, right?
Oh, I want to speak to that.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Because, okay, so again, I'm speaking from the frame of shamanic astrology and my own emergent version of that. But from our view, we're completing right now. One of the hidden things that's happening right now is we're completing a Venus and Leo cycle. And even though Venus is far from being in the sign of Leo at this moment, she's about as far as you can be from the sign of Leo in terms of where she is in the sky. She started this, she rose as morning star in August of 2023. So in that period of time, a year and a half, she's been really from this frame, she's been deeply working the mysteries of Leo. And what I've found fascinating is that at this stage in her journey, because we can see Venus as the goddess who goes through a descent and a rebirth, it's very similar to what I said with the South Node, where she's been working the medicine of Leo. So we have been worked with in terms of the medicine of Leo and the shadow side and working through that, and what is true feminine leadership, where is our power, how do we be in right relationship with our power, and
How do we sparkle
with
shamelessly? Because Leo is
how do
very
you sparkle
associated
shamelessly,
with
right?
that.
Right. So what happens by the completion of the cycle, though, if you look outside now in the west, I mean, she is stunning. She's very close to solar max, or to her brightest in the sky as evening star, as love goddess, and she is going to be massively featured at Imbolc. So as we open the year, Mars and Venus are both kind of like the big energies. So with the goddess right now, what's been interesting, what I've been noticing is she's completing this Leo cycle. And so I don't know about you, but I've been feeling all this Leo energy everywhere. And when I talk about Leo, it's that very artistic, very creative, very playful, joyful. When I think about Leo energy, I was just in Mexico with my sister and her godson, and we were celebrating all the time. I wasn't necessarily eating what I should be eating. I wasn't, we were Mexican road food is, like next level in terms of, I mean, but the spirit in that area, of course, in Mexico, we all know if we spend time there, it's so good for the spirit, the darker, deeper, rich, like alive, celebratory spirit. It's in the culture, it's built in. It felt very Leo. And I was just like, it was my birthday, and I was just like, my more strict spiritual self is like judging the hell out of what I'm doing right now. But my spirit is like, yes, celebrate, enjoy this life, like be full out, like have fun. I celebrated my birthday for 2 weeks. I never do that. I have this Calvinist inside of me that's just like, no, it's, be good. And it was just like, no, this wild, creative, playful fun. Oh, we need that, Lainie. So
Yeah.
thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you for your Jupiter and Leo. I got 0 Leo in my chart, but I was appreciating it, and I've been seeing and feeling it everywhere. It's just like, yeah, we need that. We need that joyful spirit, because I say joyful activism.
Yeah.
I know that I don't want to say it in a bypassy way, on the level that I know I see very clearly that, I think we all feel that there's some deep work to be done, and it's going to get gritty potentially. But I want to name that a big piece of what I've been really steeped in the last month, because I've been spending this time with my sister, and she has a newsletter called the Esperanza Project. It's a whole project that profiles, among other things, indigenous groups, especially in the Americas. And what I've noticed, because she also was just in Colombia with a group of land defenders there, what I've been noticing with so many of the stories is that there are a lot of wins, a lot of triumphs right now for Indigenous land defenders. I mean, there are like five that I just saw like taking off. Now, I know that there are a lot of reasons for that. It's not just in the US, it's also in Mexico and in Colombia and other countries. But I think that's also a big piece of where we want our gaze. You know what? And again, jurisdiction, right? That's what I'm locating right now is what's my jurisdiction when it comes to Indigenous communities and land defense and all of that. It's been a theme of my life, my whole life. I'm like, I've been asking that. So I'm really, that's my big inquiry right now. Again, like I'm in it. But what I want to say is that a lot of these people who've been doing this work on the ground for a very long time, they're starting to see massive results.
Yeah.
And so we have to acknowledge that because hopefulness can be somewhat of a panacea, but we have to find that very tender place where, you know, if we have a sense of hopelessness or apathy, which is rampant, and a lot of our children and young people, you know, are so overwhelmed with the polycrises. You know, we need to highlight very tangible, literal ways that individuals and communities are coming together and affecting change on the ground. It's
Yeah.
vital. We have got to highlight that.
Yeah. And I feel that too in my own life and in my own work. It's like finally, after holding the prayer for so long, for so many things and so many big dreams, that they're actually starting to finally manifest. They're actually starting to become real. And the change is becoming very tangible and very present. And it's just, you know, it is that sense of like, oh, it was not, it wasn't for naught, you know, like this mattered.
Right.
And holding that vision, even holding that line of hope, holding the vision, even when there was no proof that it was coming, you know. And I feel like that's something I've really been seeing in general, like at the end of my Yoni Vision Quest retreat in October, like the thing that came through so strong was hold the vision, because there will be times, especially as a collective, holding the vision of the world we want to see, that we're not going to see proof of it, and it's going to feel far away, and it might even feel a lot farther than it does now. And to be able to hold the vision, keep gathering, conjuring that vision, seeing it, tasting it, bringing it into our multidimensional sensory reality, to be able to continue to tangibly call that in, and you know, and to not lose hope in that way, and to have the arm in arm community energy help uplift when there are moments we fall. Because I've gotten so hopeless, like I almost didn't make it multiple times on this life journey so far, and one of them during COVID, you know. And so there's this way that it's like to continue to hold that vision and hold the line of hope, and to surround yourself with people that support you in that, I think is so important. And I do agree with the play and the creativity, and bringing that in as a way to also activate that Pisces energy feels so important. That's why, you know, in our Root to Rise and Shine free retreat this weekend, we're going to be doing my signature process that I used to create my Oracle deck. We're going to be doing your soul's calling collage and spending a lot of time to tune into the deeper creative threads of psyche and soul that can connect us to the vision and the bigger dreams. Even if we're not hearing them or seeing them, it's, you know, art is a portal to that bigger dream. And so utilizing that as a way to bring in that energy, which, you know, I do think the lightness of the play energy will be needed in a sense for some heaviness of what's happening too, to create that balance that you were talking about. And so that feels really significant. But I have to say, because we haven't talked about Jupiter yet, and Jupiter, you know, rules my chart, and I'm very dear to Jupiter.
And I have a ton of it too. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, Jupiter moving into Cancer this summer, really in the Northern Hemisphere, it really feels like a healing balm on all the energies of this year. Just like this sweet, loving, nourishing, like recheck-in from the beginning of this year of like, are you nourished? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you doing well? And like the arms of the Great Mother coming around, just like holding us to be like, you're gonna be okay, kind of thing is what it feels like. And it's like such a welcome midpoint on the journey of it's kind of my feeling, and I'm curious what you're feeling about.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, the way I see Jupiter is that it is Jupiter and North Node both kind of direct us collectively. It's one of the most beneficent, obviously, like energies we can work with. so yes, I agree. I feel that as well. And I've been looking forward to it in a sense. Um, but I also feel it's double in a way because Mars, and when I say Mars is starting a Cancer cycle, it's a 2.5, it's a two over a 2 year cycle that's starting like at the beginning of this year. So, so that adds to that energy. So not only is Jupiter moving into Cancer, but Mars, the masculine principle, is also working with that. So we've got this really balanced kind of nourishing energy that's really underpinning all of the massive shifts and changes and upheavals that we clearly are going through, the thresholds back and forth of energies. So yeah, absolutely. I think Jupiter and moving into Cancer is going to be a much needed energy after everything we've gone through in the spring, all the movement, and also to balance out so much of the air element with Uranus and Pluto both moving into the air signs. And so I see it as that. And then I also, from this frame, Venus begins the first Pisces cycle in 150 years when she rises as morning star right around the very end of March. We're going to start seeing her as morning star in the sign of Pisces. It's the first time we've had morning star Pisces for 150 years. And from this frame, what that does is it opens this field to 1.5 years where it's the cosmic mother energies. It's the feminine Pisces, Bodhisattva, the Kuan Yin, compassionate, loving feminine energies that we are working with.
Mm.
And so that also from this frame is part of that. We've got the Cancer mother is more of like, I feel the very nourishing Mother Earth kind of energy. And then you've got Pisces that is more of the cosmic mother who's, really like holding us in this field of dreaming. So I think, yes, I think that's going to be very, very helpful this year because it's a very different, well, and the other thing that's going to happen is beginning last October until the middle of May, we've had Mars and Pluto in an opposition, basically. This has been a massive, very rattling kind of energy. And I'm proud. I mean, I feel like, again, going back to the shadow work that you do so beautifully, I think that with the North Node and Aries energy, as well as that, we've been learning how to play more with conflict and play more with difference and play more with, I think about it this way and you think about it that way. So even though I think our Sangha for many of us has been people who are quite, we have a shared resonant field, I also think for many of us, we're going to be stepping out of our sangha in a sense and into the localized community around us, and we're going to be gathering people as we strengthen in those core communities of support. I think many of us are going to start to step outside of that to also influence the community and bring together people who have very different ways of seeing and thinking about the world. I think that's the next thing we're going to start seeing. We're going to find these unifying positions. And again, I think that this Mars, what I've seen is the Mars opposite Pluto energy is helping train us how to almost playfully um, meet power with power. How do we playfully meet power with power instead of, because we've got to heal this medicine of victimization. We've been in such a zone of feeling ourselves to be victims, and there are certainly victims, and we certainly have the potential to be victimized. So I have to say that very carefully, because I think also the Cancer energy is making it so essential that we have, most of the people in our world are in massive need of just the simplest kind of healing circles. Like I want to start doing a men and women's and all genders full moon gathering in my community. So with all kinds of people, not just people who think like me, but and have that be just a talking circle, because I think that's what the Cancer energy is what's a safe space? Where are the safe spaces? How do we create safe spaces?
And brave spaces with Aries.
And brave
Much
spaces.
more creating brave space because I don't know if safe space is actually realistic in this day and age.
Yes, I hear what you're saying. Yes, yes. And that goes to the victimization piece. I hear you. Yeah, authenticity, bravery, and emotional authenticity, well held. But yeah, I hear you. I totally hear you with the safety thing. It's an interesting aspect of what's evolving right now.
Yeah. But holding sacred space where we can emerge and evolve and grow into more of
Yeah,
ourselves. Like that
absolutely.
feels so key around that. Yeah, I love that perspective and the idea of, you know, that we've been in training. And I think we're also learning true power versus false power. And
Yeah.
we're learning the
We're
power of love over the love of power. And we're having a lot of shifts with power in general. And so I think that's a really, you know, interesting part about what's to come in this turning of the ages. And I pulled one other card for us, which is Midwife, the New Earth, which feels very fitting. You know, it's like here we are holding this seed of what is possible and the seed of life and
Mhm.
like tending to that lovingly. And there's a metamorphosis that we're undergoing, right? And we're here trying to end
Wow.
the separation and clear the divide. And we're on this rainbow bridge of metamorphosis with the serpent here shedding what no longer serves
Nice.
and breaching
Beautiful.
like the whale into new life, right? And
Ooh.
new blossoming. And so this feels juicy for us, you know, too, because it is all, you know, it's like we are trying to create that more beautiful world our hearts knows is possible ultimately in all of this. And
Mhm.
the astrology just becomes part of a support and a guide for that. And so, yeah. And I know you're going to be doing an upcoming masterclass around this turning of the ages. You want to speak a little bit to that and the medicine of that? Because I think
Yeah.
it's so important to look at the larger cycles that we're a part
Mhm.
of and not just the, you know, oh, this is the cycle that's happening this year.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I am going to be offering a master class, and it's the basic concept, as you said already or mentioned, is that it's if we look at the bigger frame of where we're at now in 2025, I think that's super vital right now. And so we can look at these individual cycles, and they're very important. But for example, we're moving from alpha or omega to alpha, you could say, right? From these two massive signs in Pisces into Aries. I mean, that's just a massive movement, right? We've got all outer planets are shifting signs this year. We also have the reality that of that, there two of them are shifting back and forth. And so I think many of us recognize that this year is really a threshold, and next year is going to be really moving into a bigger, deeper reality. But there's a lot more that we haven't talked about today that literally has to do with what's happening with the sun as a living energy and being, what's happened physiologically with the sun, what's happening to the earth, because the earth is going through changes. And what about some of these larger prophecies and how they weave together? So, yes, it's going to be about this turning of the age and some of the new information around that. And then how do we work with that? You know, how do we work with that? How do we see this from a larger frame? Because I think that's just very, very helpful. And so, yes, I'm going to be offering that. So, people can sign up for that at tamibrunk.com/events. And I'm going to enjoy doing that and offering a little bit more of that bigger picture.
I love it. Yeah, and the link will be below the video here for you to be able to really jump into that. I'm definitely going to be there, so come and join us. And you know, this is a time of prophecy, and that's just like, you know, really something to be real about as well, and to be able to really anchor yourself in that knowing too. And there's a reason that people are referring to the floods from Hurricane Helene and the fires that are happening now as biblical, right? Because there
Yeah.
are ways that there have been prophecies in many different cultures across time. And so, you know, it is important to locate ourselves with all the different things
Yes.
that are moving so that we can have true awareness, so we can have true sight, so that we can truly see that we are a part of a larger dance that is unfolding without it feeling so, you know, I think that for me, astrology and really learning and knowing and anchoring in all of this helps me to, it's a solace really to be like, oh, this is the cosmic dance we're in, and how powerful that we get to be a
Yes.
part of this, you know, this grand unfolding. And instead of it being like, what the fuck is happening? Like
Right,
everything is
right.
falling apart. It's like, you know, really trusting in a deeper divine design with that spiritual surrender, and also being informed to really support that deeper sense of knowing and trust as we move deeper into this time of the turning of the ages and prophecy and transformation, deep transformation. And so, yeah, would love for you all to join that. And I'm also going to be doing a day-long free retreat this weekend on Sunday called Root to Rise, Shine, and Soar. And this is really an opportunity to go on the magic carpet ride with me, as I like to take people on. It's going to be a mix of some embodied ecstatic movement, some expressive arts, some depth inquiry, some beautiful group sharing, and really an opportunity to root into our inner truth and then rise into that next level of our sovereign power and shine with our authentic gifts so we can truly soar into 2025 in our grounded vision together as badass world-changing women and queers who are living the lives of our wildest dreams and making them real. Because that, with the Pisces and the Aries energy together, like that is such a, we have that opportunity, just as Saturn is still in Pisces, to build that big dream now, to make it real, to manifest it. Like this is the gift of these energies together, and that I feel like are going to be transpiring this year too. So continuing to get yourself in containers with people who feel resonant to you in your similar frequency, to be able to actually build that big dream and to not try and do it alone, and to really gather together for that. And you'll also be able to access a 30-minute one-on-one call with me, this Bloom Through Clarity call, to help you even get a little deeper with your vision and what you're doing, for those that show up and attend or watch the recording of the retreat. So please join us. We would love to journey with you. And there's lots of juicy support coming up this year as well, just to really help continue to ground you in. And there'll be more episodes here too. And just thank you so much for joining us, Tami. Love it and adore you so much. And
oh yes, always a delight and pleasure, and
yeah.
Excited for what you're creating, because I know I've been in your containers, and to be able to it's like bringing all of us into the field through dance, through creativity, through all of these processes, these spiritual technologies, that to anchor this year in that way. Super, super exciting. So I'm
Yeah.
really excited to be with you and for the medicine that's coming forward.
Thank you, beloved. Yeah, it's all about the liberation that is possible, and it's like really stepping into these spaces to be able to come into that sense of liberation of our most authentic essence now, and staying in our lane, finding our jurisdiction, doing what we came here to do, doing the damn thing, making it happen. It feels like this is the time to activate that. And that feels so clear and so important. And another thing that I'm going to be doing during the retreat is really talking about how to apply the astrology of 2025 in your life very practically, to support you in taking some very practical steps to be able to anchor this medicine in and to really live it, to embody it fully in your life. And so, beloved, thank you for this. Excited for all that's to come. I'm sure we will see you again soon, and can't wait for your masterclass as well. And lots of love for all those joining us, and cannot wait to journey with you in 2025. Bye for now.